I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show, and this is the Small Business Report, brought to you by Real Digital Media, powerful technology to drive your digital retail experience and help your small business grow. Visit us today at realdigitalmedia.com. I welcome Adam Schuster, my colleague with his eyes on the small businesses of Illinois that are burdened by a tax bill that not only cannot be paid, but also cannot help pay off the past tax bills that arrived or the past commitments by the state. Adam is Senior Director of Budget and Tax Research at the Illinois Policy Institute. And most recently, the Institute and others have noted a success, which is a member of the Congress from Illinois, the Illinois group, the Darin LaHood. He represents the 18th Congressional District, which Adam tells me, because he lives in Illinois and I've only ever visited, is central to southern Illinois around Peoria. Darin LaHood introduces the Taxpayer Protection Act in the House of Representatives. That's federal. But it's written so that I don't have to be an Agatha Christie reader to guess that it comes to Illinois to pay attention to the Taxpayer Protection Act. Adam, a very good evening to you. Mr. LaHood, with a smile on his face, is looking directly at Springfield. What does the Taxpayer Protection Act represent, and how does it answer or not Illinois' problems with unfunded mandates? Good evening to you.
Good evening. That's a great question, and I think I'll just lay out a little bit how we got to where we are and what the Taxpayer Protection Act does and why I think Congressman LaHood filed it. Many of your listeners may be aware at this point that Illinois is sort of the fiscal basket case of the United States. It's frequently ranked, worst pension debt, worst budget crises, largest overall debt burdens, highest, tax burdens, and all of these other things. And despite that, we're currently in a situation where the state is crying poor. They're asking for a bailout from the federal government. And both Democrats in the state legislature here, as well as Governor Pritzker, want a blank check bailout. They want, money with no strings attached that they can use to cover up their past mismanagement, that they can use to plug holes in the pension system and cover up their deficits and all the rest. But what Congressman LaHood's bill would do is say that they can get money to use for essential services, to cover revenue shortfalls directly caused by the pandemic, and to fund essential government services, because we don't want to be, cutting education or laying off police officers and firefighters and all the rest during a massive crisis. But it says that if they get that money, it should come as forgivable loans, with forgiveness for the loans contingent on responsible financial planning at the state level, so that they're proving that not only are they getting their fiscal house in order, but they're saving their residents and giving them the rescue they really need, which is these reforms that will protect them in the long term, not just a short-term cash infusion to throw more money down the black hole of Illinois debt and deficit. In
an analysis, you compare this to the very successful Paycheck Protection Program in the CARES Act from Congress. How does it compare? How does that guide us?
Yeah, so I think what the Paycheck Protection Program was all about is it was the Congress giving money, but making it contingent on employers keeping their workforce. And if they kept their workforce, they would get the loans forgiven. And that was basically to make sure that the money was used for its intended purpose. What you don't want is situations where Congress gives someone money and then they squander it or they use it to enrich themselves. That's a real risk with Illinois politicians who not only have, like I said, the worst fiscal health in the nation, haven't balanced a budget in 20 years, but are also among the most corrupt politicians in the nation, by any reasonable measure and by the experts who look at these types of things. So you have a corrupt state with a history of financial mismanagement, and they're asking for money from the federal government with the pretense that it'll be used for services. But just like with the Paycheck Protection Program, there have to be some strings attached to make sure the money goes for its intended uses.
Oh, and good. I'm glad you mentioned strings. Let's rush to them. Come on, Adam.
Sure.
All right, the first string. There are three of them, and that's a little difficult with the metaphor. So I'll just say that we're tying three strings together. The sound pensions. What does it look like? This is for all states, not just Illinois.
That's right. So, and I should say about 41 states already have reasonably sound pension systems. Illinois, of course, is one of the states that does not. And we defined a sound pension system as honestly a fairly low bar. Can you fully pay off the debt that you have over 25 years without increasing the cost to your taxpayers? And if you can do that, if you can pay off your pension debt without increasing taxpayers' costs, you have a sound pension system. If not, the bill would require you to lower your pension debt to the amount that you can truly afford, again, without increasing the tax to your taxpayers, and it would prohibit states from offering fixed cost of living adjustments like Illinois does. It says that, if you have a pension, it can increase over time, but the increase has to be based on either inflation or investment returns. It can't just be a fixed percentage because that puts too much of the risk on the taxpayer.
Second string, a balanced budget, truly balanced budget. What would that look like?
That's right. A truly balanced budget means a budget that actually balances at the end of the year, rather than just in the politically motivated projections of state politicians. This is another one that is targeted at Illinois, but there are 39 states that currently do have these truly balanced budget requirements. Illinois is one of just 11 states that doesn't, and that's why we've been able to use tricks and gimmicks for the last 20 years to cover up these deficits, and the politicians keep pretending to pass a balanced budget, but it comes in red at the end of each year. And so this would also prohibit them from counting borrowing or sweeping money from other government accounts as a form of revenue. You would only be able to count actual revenue as revenue, and that means money's coming in from taxes and fees.
And a rainy day fund. What a good idea that is. Every household in America I'm familiar with practices a rainy day fund. It's amazing you have to require states to do it. What does it look like, Adam?
Yeah, and this is another one. Most states, you don't have to require them to do it. These sorts of things, like you say, are common sense for most people. You balance your budget, you save for a rainy day, and you save for retirement responsibly. But Illinois had virtually nothing saved going into the pandemic, and that's why we're in a situation where we need this bailout so much more desperately than most. We didn't have any cash saved for an emergency on our own. Arizona, which did do responsible planning, had about a $1.7 billion cushion. They could have absorbed up to a 15% drop in their revenues without having to make any cuts, and that's because they saved for a rainy day. So this bill would say, going forward, any state who wants this loan forgiven has to commit to a sound rainy day fund where they have a target of saving around 5 to 10% of their budget in reserves when the economy is growing, and that it requires some type of supermajority or some type of high bar to make withdrawals from the funds so that they can't use them for non-emergency purposes.
You note that Governor Pritzker in the middle of September wrote a letter to Illinois' congressional delegation urging them to, quote, come together in a bipartisan fashion to provide critical support. We just have 30 seconds, Adam. Does he count on the Illinois delegation delivering to him? Is this certainty, or is he begging?
Well, I think this bill does deliver. It delivers on what he asked for, which is some short-term financial aid, but it also, the governor said he supports new solutions and he supports making our state government more efficient. This bill gives both the aid and the efficiencies that he says he wants. To date, he's been standing in the way of these types of reforms, but if he wants to do what's right for the people of Illinois, he'll embrace this idea, embrace the Taxpayer Protection Act, so that he can give residents the rescue that they really need, which is reforms to a failing system, not just throwing good money after bad.
Adam Schuster, Senior Director, Budget and Tax Research, Illinois Policy Institute in Chicago. I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show.